Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to this panel. Today, we have a very important and very interesting topic to talk about, AI. However, I think something that we all agreed on from the first moment that we started talking was AI is usually dealt with, especially in podcasts, etc., as this magic tool, magic pill to solve all of your issues, all of your problems, and definitely it's not really the reality. That's why we wanted to take the chance, talk a little about what's their experience and their use cases and how to actually educate so that it's not an overwhelming integration into your regular processes and more about trying to make it a bit more efficient, make it a bit useful for your team, and definitely make it work for your team. I'm going to start asking each of you a bit of your experience. Maybe, Nataliia, you can start a little with, I guess you were talking about the fact that you used AI for in-app events, a bit more creative.
Of course. First of all, hello, everyone, and thanks for every person who still here and listening, not waiting outside for lunch. Huge appreciation for you being here. I'm Nat. I have more than 5 years experience for subscription-based apps. For Fabulous, I'm working as a UA lead, but at the same time overseeing and helping with ASO activities. So a lot on my plate. AI is a very hot topic, but I'm not gonna do the bullshit bingo here about productivity, successful success, quite rather than some practical tools. Long story short, it's not a magic pill, but it can bring and boost your speed of work and productivity. What we use AI at Fabulous for different things, and we're actually very open to test and try different tools. ChatGPT is something, it's a buzzword, but on top of that, there are a lot of other smaller tools that you can use for a million of different reasons. From the ASO perspective, you can use, again, the simplest ChatGPT for many things, for all the text-related stuff, and it does the job pretty well. But on top of that, for the marketing team in general, you can use it for creatives, you can use it for brainstorming, you can use it to write emails to your management when you find for nicer words to explain why performance is bad. So AI can be used a lot.
That's super interesting. I feel like with having like both of you, Skylar and Nataliia, on similar roles, you definitely use AI in very different ways. Of course, like some shared experience, but what's your take on it, Skylar?
Yeah, I think one thing that Nataliia mentioned that kind of stuck out to me was the part about brainstorming. That was something that I was going to mention I've also used it for. I think in the past, and even now, you can still come up with a bunch of ideas for things. Like, for example, I don't know, like different things to test or different ideas and stuff like that. But I think now with ChatGPT, you can kind of like create a really comprehensive list in really easily. And then, yeah, you can filter through and just pick out the best pieces. So I think that one for sure. I don't know if you mentioned, but specifically on keyword research and stuff like that, I think you're using it for that as well. Oh, you didn't? Okay. Yeah, I think for keyword research, that's another way that I'm using it, ChatGPT specifically, and it's just like, it's so easy. You can create lists of different relevant keywords, with a lot of ease, and that used to be a very time-consuming process. I think those are the two main ways that I use it. A last one that I'm sure we all use it in this way is for translation work and kind of like, so to give you an experience that from my work is that we work with international teams. Obviously not everybody's like native English speaker. We have a lot of things going on. And we've started rolling that out for collaboration with our international team. So if they're giving me some kind of copy or something like that, they just run it through ChatGPT, get it, make sure, check it for grammatical errors and things like that. As well as for translation work, if we're testing short descriptions or creating screenshot copy or something like that. In addition to actually creating that with ChatGPT, you can also have it translate into a bunch of different languages. Obviously, it's better to have somebody actually translating it, but I think if you have to do it on the fly, maybe if you're like a smaller team or something like that, not many resources, it's an easy way to kind of get that going.
Yeah,
really,
I
really
agree with
quickly.
you to some extent, but like fun fact, people at Fabulous speak 18 languages altogether. So we always love to compare the human versus AI generated version. And when you want something to have a sentiment which is specific to the country, not just a language, the most obvious is Brazil Portuguese versus Brazil. Because Portuguese Brazil versus Portuguese Portugal, but also when it comes to French, because French in Belgium and French in France are still two different Frenches, depending where your audience is, it's always good to have either to train the model to be more French or to ask actually a French person to check it, because those, large language models are great, but they do not have intangible knowledge about how can you translate the crisp of baguette into large language model? You can't.
Yeah, I definitely think that's probably the case. That needs more work to be done on it. But I also think, and I'm going to talk about this later, but I also think there are ways to get what you're saying, like the difference between French, Canadian French, which, yeah, it's
Yes,
different. And I don't know any French. All I know is I'm wearing a costume Canadien today. But yeah, no. Yeah, I think I'll talk about that more in the later sections, but I think you're also right. This is just something like the early stages, how I've been using it type thing. But yeah, there's probably a lot to say about like colloquial language and kind of things like that.
I definitely also, from our experience with clients, we also took a dive into using AI as well for a bit more monitoring. So try to make sure that all of the dashboards have like a bit of like a description that is a bit more mechanical, and then having you guys just go straight into the strategy and actually the next steps of it. So it's super interesting, other than just like the manual work that we think of in ASO, which is like the keyword research. Max, I think in terms of creatives, you mentioned when we first talked that AI is the perfect tool for someone that lacks with creativity. But more from like the product side, what was your experience with it?
Yeah, for me, I think I'm more on a data side. So I'm like a data technical product manager. I'm working for last 10 years like within data digital marketing, and for me, this is the tool that basically helps with communication, building the stories for various parts of the company, for example, for internal communication and also the customer communication. It helps to build the stories into that resembles what I want to communicate for different profiles, for different roles. Like it would be an engineer, for example, or it would be like a business development person. And I found out also recently that you can do some visualization through code, like building some charts, so you can actually ask some questions to the ChatGPT, like, can you visualize it, some context in a graph, and it will just give you a code that will be visualized, and then you can share with your team, for example. But yeah, for me, I think it gives a good advantage in terms of communication, visualization, so like more of a creative part. But on the other hand, as you mentioned, Nataliia, I think it lacks on context. Yeah, so like whatever we have as a distinctive knowledge within our company, we need to find a way to share it with these chat models. Yeah, and this is where I think I found the prompt engineering comes really as a thing, really important to put an effort into generating it, making some boilerplate, making some script, let's imagine, like, yeah, imagine it's like a newcomer for your team, some student is joining, and you need to explain it. So like once you identify those use cases that help you, that are repeatable, that are scalable, and you find the value within the chat GPT or some other AI assistant, invest your time, develop a prompt, and then it will assist you giving this additional value to what you see. So, yeah, for me, I think it's mostly the communicational part that it gives. But yeah, obviously there are, I think, value analyzing some contextual data of the reviews, for example, or of the user behavior, or extracting the data again from some visuals, like some screenshots or session recordings. This is like a potential I see in identifying the performance of your experiments, for example, or understanding your customers better.
I feel definitely what you're mentioning is all about trying to make the team a bit more lean, having like less people and reaching more things eventually. That is super interesting because I feel that we were talking before that with AI, it has to be somehow integrated within the team, but also celebrated among the different teams. Has something changed for you in the past months that you've been working with AI within the other teams? So sort of like a bit what Max was saying about maybe cross-collaboration with other teams. Does it make it easier, or is it a bit of a blocker?
In our case, we still work as different departments, but it makes it easier. Let me put it this way. If you don't know why the hell you're using ChatGPT, you will not have any use of it. Let's be honest. It's like if you don't know how to drive, no matter if you drive a car from the 60s versus the newest Tesla, you will still end up somewhere on the suburbs because you don't know where you go. The same as ChatGPT can make you more productive as long as you know what you want. In our case, like how we explore ChatGPT, every department does it, and there are different, for example, developers, they are sharing their own learnings which are not applicable for marketing. But for example, between marketing and design and marketing and product, this is somewhere where there are more space for a collaboration, because what we do is share like, hey, this is what we have. Like, oh, cool, like, and I use this tool because, just a very straightforward example, Fabulous has a huge team of people who create beautiful illustrations, and those are all handwritten, hand-drawn. And the design team tried to educate the algorithm how to produce generative AI illustrations, and shared it with the marketing team to share like, hey, what do you think about it? Is it nice? Should it be improved? And we're like, yeah, let's try it other way. So it's still have to keep in mind that this technology can be applicable across all different teams. Something that I'm most excited about is actually not about ASO, but more about data. Because if you have some basic understanding of how coding works, you can develop your own tools, you can develop your own scripts and visualize dashboards easily without having a deep understanding of the code. So it becomes way easier to become, I would say, developer literate, but still you need to make an effort to understand the basics. So it makes everything easier when you know what you need and how to get it. So no one will replace your brains, but the speed will be boosted, in our case.
I completely agree. For me, it's sort of like the same situation of trying to, in my current position, because I have to know a little bit about all of the services eventually, it's super useful to kind of be able to go to gather information of the main 3 topics, what I need to get deep down on later with a consultant, but definitely allows you and empowers you to be some sort of like mini genius about a completely new topic. How about you? Do you have any experience with this within your teams, in your company?
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, I think the main one I kind of touched on already, but it's just kind of collaborating with our international teams has been the main use case for me so far. I think what both of Nataliia and Max mentioned here is about that the data part of it as well is quite interesting, though I haven't really worked with that yet, but I think that when that gets up and running, I think that could be another good collaboration. Specifically, obviously we have data analysis teams, and I think every at least the growth marketing departments will work with them. And I think that's a good place where there's some opportunity for better collaboration via AI. Though, unfortunately, I can't really speak on that. But I do think it's really interesting. And I'm sure there's a couple people here that probably are also working with that. That could give some more information. But yeah, that's pretty much my experience.
Max, please.
And, I'd like to add for the application, and especially like cross-team collaboration on this. What's how I see the goal of like ChatGPT is like assistant basically with some average level of some tasks for people who have a good experience in something. So if people who are really good in doing something and they think of if the ChatGPT, for example, can help them achieve some and scale these tasks, it's all about like scale and bringing down the costs. So if there is additional value, don't keep it to yourself. Try to share it with other teams, maybe like building some scripts or like some simple Slack bots, but that will be reusable within the company and will help to scale, will help to do some tasks with lower cost to make it faster. And yeah, if you're an experienced person, you can enable other people doing the same things, for example, to some expected value. For example, if you're writing content, can it be like you can help product managers or, I don't know, customer success write content to the same level so that, for example, customer or support team can scale their efforts, reply to more like emails or commands with a much better level of satisfaction, with much better level of quality of their replies. So like, can you enable them through these tools? Like, and they would just focus on reviewing it. So if you're not keeping it to yourself, but thinking like, how can I enable other people's, sharing my skills through ChatGPT, obviously, through the prompt engineering, I think it basically, yeah, it would be a differentiating thing for your company. Yeah, because me as a product manager, I'm basically going around the company talking to various stakeholders and thinking like, okay, are they using ChatGPT? How their like applications look like? Is there something we would rather build as a full-blown product, like and scale it across many products, and it will give us a difference as a company or not? So yeah, don't keep it to yourself and try to share it.
Actually, that just reminded me of another thing, because you were talking about responding to emails and stuff like that, and kind of, yeah, we were going to talk about that too. Yeah. So I think what we're both thinking about is like, yeah, with review analysis and stuff like that, and kind of replies, because that's a lot of work, right? There's a lot of things to reply to. Like we have a team specifically for that.
Somebody will get fired.
Well.
I mean, like, we have to be honest. Like, people who do random, repeated jobs will be replaced by AI. That's not a joke. But people with brains won't be. Because if all you do is draw without understanding why and generating new concepts and ideas, the AI will train to be better than you. But if you know how to use AI for your own good, then you will be a successful person on the market. In terms of, like, ASO, because like we still have to understand, like for ASO, what you can do. For example, you use Uptweak or any other tool, you generate a list of keywords based on them when you do market research. Then you give it to ChatGPT and ask to help me to create a couple of titles and short descriptions based on the relativity to my app and the, for example, keyword efficiency index. That's a good saying. So the point is, if you don't know what those things are and everything you were doing was just like writing texts based on something that your manager did before, then you will be screwed, because people who do not think and do not understand the bigger picture will be replaced. But if you know why, for example, the keyword run is important but keyword running is not, this is actually the topic from the last year's conference, then you won't be, because this is something that AI is not that good at capturing. But you, as a professional in your own field, will be able to understand like those little technical details that AI does not know yet.
Yet.
Here, definitely, we also were talking about, I feel like most of the podcasts and panels are based on the many wonders of AI, but definitely as people that use AI regularly, we see more like the limitations sometimes. I believe that, I'll just let you.
Yeah, but I wanted to say, like, that's the difference. Like, in many cases, people who have much more, quality of making decisions, and they're like much more close, like, to the correct choices, to correct doing correct decisions. They are losing actually to the people who have doing more decisions in a specific time range. Yeah, but they're able to deploy them, and they're able to measure them, and they can like improve iteratively their process. So like if you're seeing that it's like really not that great as you would expect it, yeah, still try to like launch it. And the difference here can be a scale. Obviously, if you're launching it, and if you're doing it, for example, on a level that you have a direct interaction with your customer, maybe it doesn't make a difference. But if you're serving globally, if you're serving various regions, it can have a really good decision just because of the speed. Yeah, and then you can maybe iteratively improve it with time.
For sure. I feel like the limitations that usually come up are based on what you were mentioning before, Nataliia, so a bit of the context on why the keywords work or don't work. Sometimes it's just you're asking the wrong questions to AI, so definitely iterate on your prompt. But also I feel like we also talked about this, about the creative side of it. There's some limitations depending on your, the side of the team that you're, or like the team you're in this case. We see that maybe like, not ethical, but more like you put creative output to a higher standard when it's based on AI and not created by designers. I think like Nataliia.
In our case, there are two main limitations, I would say. First of all, don't forget that everything you say is recorded. I mean, everything you say can be used against you. I mean, there are some cases, it's not ASO related, but if I'm not mistaken, Samsung employees were checking their code in ChatGPT and then they were fired because they were actually leaking the code into the third parties. So don't share super sensitive information as long as you're not happy with sharing. But if you're happy, if you don't care, if you say like, I'm that cool, I can share my number of installs and proceeds, then do it. But in most cases, companies do not want to share sensitive information. The honesty, we don't know how it's going to be used or if it's going to be used and how well it's protected. But in the long run, large language models are, especially the ChatGPT 3 and 3.5 are open source. So maybe someone who is super smart and super evil may break the code and take all your information and then you'll be screwed. Don't save your passwords in ChatGPT. And on top of that, when it comes to especially visual stuff, designers more than developers are more attached to their creations. And that's an ethical question of intellectual property rights. Because like when you're writing text, it's harder to, as long as it's not poem, it's or a huge novel, that nobody will actually bother whether it's AI written or human written. But when you have some visuals, the designers may feel like, but why did you train the system based on my work and I'm not getting any credit for it? So for some people it causes problems. For me it does, because I still want everyone to be appreciated for their job. But everything depends how close you are to copying what others did in the past.
And the copying, I think it lacks on the value unless you understand why you're doing this or another job. Yeah, so like without the goal in mind, if you're just copying somebody else's data or somebody else's numbers, it doesn't make you any difference. So yeah, and this is I think the differentiation where you as a company, for example, understand how to merge your own first-party data and third party, like market data, maybe coming from a large language model or something else, and make them work effectively together so that on the one hand, you understand your customers really well with your own data, and on the other hand, you have this scale applied. And then you can serve your customers in a really personalized way.
I have a really funny story to share about privacy. We as a team have one premium ChatGPT account, so all the marketing department have access to it. And don't forget to delete your questions and conversations because sometimes there's so much fun going on. And in one case, not to say that, hey, it seems like you should delete this message because that's not what everyone should see. And oops, yes, it was a message about how to explain some bad things to CEO. And they were like, okay. Don't forget that it's not only the large language model that gives the knowledge, but if you use a shared account, other people will see what you're asking. Or AI, do you love me? Or something like this. Just don't ask those questions.
Should I send the late night text? Make sure to delete that one. You don't want other people seeing that.
I feel it's the case also whenever you share an account of Netflix and then someone starts watching something a bit random and you're like, not me. But yeah, sorry, Skylar, from your perspective, what are the main limitations? Do you agree with Natalia's ethical barrier there?
No, I think I'll get to that in a second. I think, so coming into this talk, I was thinking, okay, yeah, maybe on the creative side, there are some big limitations. I still feel that way at the moment, like if we're talking about today. However, a lot of the stuff coming out onto the market, and for example, some of the Adobe Firefly stuff and the products that are getting pushed out are really, really impressive. And I think that while now I wouldn't really kind of use it for creative stuff, I think in the very near future that could change. I'm not saying like you have to get rid of your designers because you won't need them type thing, but I do think there will be a lot more that you can do with it. As for the ethical side, and I know a lot of people probably won't agree with me on this, but this is my honest take on it, is I think right now it's the Wild West, and I think just go for it. Just go all the way. And, we'll see what happens when the dust settles. I don't know, I think it's kind of a wild take on it, but I think in terms of the sharing, code and stuff like that, I mean, no one really knows where it goes. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but it's the Wild West, Test it out, see what happens, and then one day, we'll understand it a bit better.
I mean, as long as you understand the risks and your company understands the risks of sharing some privacy and sensitive data, use it.
Yeah, that would be more if it was like my company. I wouldn't do it with somebody else's. But yeah, and as for what was the ethics about the, what were you saying about the generation images and intellectual properties? Yeah, I mean, from my side, I don't have any limitations there, but.
Designers will not agree with you.
And the legal teams and brand teams crying a little.
This is just my personal take. This is not what I do in my work life, by the way, but that's my personal take on it. I think we need to really explore, the main point being, I think we really need to explore this topic. It's obviously a big thing. Everybody's talking about it. And I think it just needs to be explored to understand, where's the boundary, what are the potentials and things like that.
My huge recommendation, I hope you're smart people anyway. Do not buy some course how to use prompts for ChatGPT. 50 prompts you can use for every task. You have dudes, you have brains, and you know better what you want rather than people on the internet who are trying to sell for $5, 50 lines, they generated on ChatGPT. I have a friend who wrote a book on how to use ChatGPT that he wrote with ChatGPT, and now he is a best-selling author. So try not to fall into this trap. He's a good businessman and entrepreneur, but as a human, he sucks.
That's the point, the speed and scale with less effort.
I feel what I was mentioning before about the brand teams, I feel that's usually a bit of the case whenever we're talking about generative AI in terms of creating things that sound like your brand, that resonate to your user. kind of like gets lost a bit in the way. I believe I saw on LinkedIn someone in order to create long descriptions, would use other competitors' long descriptions as a reference.
I have to shout out to Anton, who sits over there, who wrote a beautiful post on LinkedIn about how to write long descriptions. When you write long descriptions, you find a happy balance between keyword optimization and tone of voice, and depending how brand saturated your niche are, because when you're working in, for example, food delivery, your brand is everything, because if you look at the top searches, those are all big brands. But when you work for utilities, it's way more about keywords rather than, like how many utilities, it's Evernote when you talk about notepads, and all the rest are just Notepad, Notepad Pro plus 2, like 2023. So depending on the niche, you will figure out how much brand where you should put versus how much keyword saturation you should put. And actually, I trust ChatGPT because depending on how well you phrase the prompt, and when you check about, for example, the brand tone of voice, you can put, I want to use keywords from this competitor, but want to keep with the tone of voice from this text, which is generated by me, and I want to use these keywords based on the ASO intelligence tool that I want. And it will do it work. But I always recheck ChatGPT in Grammarly, just because sometimes it uses really strange language constructions, which are not easy to understand for many people. And 2, don't forget that ChatGPT can lie, so it can write about features you don't have, which happens pretty often. So before setting it live, actually read what you have in the output, because some people don't, and it's really funny.
Also, I think from the perspective of trying to keep brands but still using generative AI for creatives, something that popped for us internally as well is from the perspective of someone that isn't a designer but still wants to translate the way that like a proposal on a specific creative or a specific way to explain something. It's so much easier to go to a designer to maybe even create a bunch of ideas that obviously are not going to be on brand, are not going to be how you actually want them to look, but at least so that they understand a bit better. If you struggle with communication of your ideas, as I do, I think it paints a better picture of what you actually want to propose to them, and then they can definitely give it a spin and make it part of your brand identity. So definitely use it wisely. I mean, before, all I did was take like a slide, taking off backgrounds of random pictures and do like a collage. So now just like prompting everything on Midjourney maybe makes it a lot easier at least. Well, then maybe just looking towards the last questions, maybe one round of tips to actually integrate this in your team. How was a bit of your way of starting incorporating this into your everyday life? I'm guessing it wasn't like from one day to another, all of your processes changed. Like, what was your take? Maybe Skylar, you can start.
All right. Yeah, I'll start. Judging by how my last take was taken, I don't know if I should be given tips, but my tips are, I think you should definitely start using it now. Like, start getting familiarized with it now, because a lot of people already are, and I think there's potential to get less left in the dust for the good parts of it, not the unethical parts, if you don't start now. And the other thing is, if you have a team, encourage them to start also playing around with it, to try to find ways to incorporate it into their workflow, and just start to play around with it. It's not going to be, it's not going to work for everybody, right away, but I think just getting people familiarized with it and where you can use it type thing, that would be my main tip.
I have a list of practical tips. So we have weekly marketing calls, and we try to have one person talking about how to use different AI solutions. For example, one week it's about generating statics, the other week it's about generating videos, the other week it's about how to improve the quality of emails. So it's not just about ASO, it's also about other sub-departments that work for the same goal, because on the long run we're all in the same team. And it's a bite-sized learning, because every week you learn something new. For example, how to generate text for promotional content and in-app events. And then, for example, okay, this is what we have it, versus something that we do, for example, to create better briefs for influencers. It's not ASO specific, it's all marketing specific. We haven't yet reached the stage where we discuss it as larger teams, meaning like marketing versus data versus engineering, but it's something that I believe we will reach in the long run, because this is, in the long run, everyone should be data literate and generative AI literate. But that's what I believe in.
Yeah, nothing else to add. Yeah, first, understand your revenue stream, really great. Second, understand where you sit in this revenue stream and how you can adjust it, share it with the team, like in the calls or something. Third one, experiment with it. Don't just go with like, no, I don't like this quality. Try to prove it with data, so you need to be comfortable with experimentation and argumenting with performance numbers. And don't maybe try to build everything. There are lots of tools. Don't try to try all the AI tools, even though if you have time, it can be valuable. But I think if you stick to the tools you've already chosen, try to share your ideas with the vendors, like so that they can build it, and you focus on what is important for you. Or maybe it's an idea to change the vendor sometimes, but those guys that are building the tools, like for example for ASO or some other marketing, they're doing their job, I think, and they will help to make your life easier as well. So.
One thing to add is that if you don't use it, you'll be left behind, because the privilege and priority of people who speak well English, who know how to code, is getting vanished, because now everyone has the access to it. And even nothing bad about people in Pakistani, but can you imagine 300 apps appearing on the same day with amazingly beautiful description, which is copycat from the main competitor on the market? It's getting more and more competitive. So if you don't have a good description, if you don't have the good app store with visuals, then you'll be screwed. And at the same time, it means that ASO will play slightly less role, because when everyone has such a good optimized stuff, it means that product metrics, crash rates, and INRs will play more important, because you can basically fool the system to have the description of a 5-star app when you're a 2-star app, but you cannot fake the system when your app crashes every 10th time. So it will be a necessity to have everything done with A+ score, rather than a privilege of companies who have budgets and opportunity to do it. And the other thing, your brains will not be substituted by anything. If you don't like thinking, then you're screwed. But if you're inventive and creative, then you will be enhanced with additional help by generative AI and large language models.
Exactly. I think also from the perspective of my own team, account and project management, the way that we are going about it is just try to find a brainstorm of the most mechanical tasks that are easily would just easily be reviewed with a quick read, but kind of the idea is to try to keep on trying to make this efficient so that we have enough time to serve clients, or in the actual strategy rather than on the mini reporting, for example. Maybe one last thing that I would like to ask, that I think that it's super interesting, especially for ASO, just because we see that the big players are also taking part a lot in this part of the project, in integrating AI now into their tools. For example, Google mentioned only last month that they were going to try this experimental tool with AI, and supposedly, the tool will be able to help create short and long descriptions, as well as localizations to 10 different markets, I think, 10 different languages. For me, that's something that is very interesting, looking forward for the future months. Is there something that you have on your radar that you'd really like to try?
I want Apple and Google to finally stick to their promises because they promised custom store listings for uninstalled users for 2 years or something. So, I mean, as soon as they learn how to keep to their promises, I'd be happy.
Okay, but from the perspective of just in general AI, is there something that you have in that you'd like to test it for? It doesn't have to be with Google or iOS specifically, but more about your processes maybe. Skylar, do you have something in mind?
In terms of the tools that companies are rolling out, yeah?
In tools, could be a process.
Yeah, well, I definitely want to take a look into that Google one. I think that one's pretty interesting. I know there's also another one like Search Ads HQ, well, formerly Search Ads HQ, now called Split Metrics Acquire. They've integrated some kind of AI bidding into their platform, which I think could be interesting. And that's the main one that I kind of want to play around with. It kind of seems like it's kind of just a rebranding of what they used to have, but I'm sure like it's probably not. So
in our case, we try different visual generative AI tools like Midjourney, Leonardo, Athena, to name a few, and we just look forward to improving quality of their creatives. And here is one more important thing: something beautiful doesn't mean something that performs well. And so far, what I've learned is that generative AI produce beautiful things, like visually pleasing, because they are trained on visually pleasing things. But when you check what are the best performing creators, for example, or what are the best performing screenshots, that's not usually the same thing. So understanding the sentiment or finding again the happy balance between something that's visually pleasing and converting would be something that make me excited about. I really love checking the visual AI tools, honestly, because it's such an interesting thing what you can get in the output. And you never know what you're going to get. It's like the box of chocolates from Forrest Gump.
What about you, Max?
Yeah, I was also thinking about this semantic analysis and the visual representation of, or visual analysis, but more in the context of a campaign performance, like correlating the semantics of the campaign description and the text in the campaign, visuals, and the performance of the campaigns. Like, is there something we can match maybe the cohorts of our audience that see these campaigns with some segments of like some kind of clusters of the language that we use and how it impacts the performance. Like, I think this can help a little bit in this prompt generation, so that we can tweak with some weight better, or to achieve better performance for specific groups of the audience. So yeah, if this research gives us some feedback that we can apply, that would be cool, I think, to test on the company-wide.
I have a vendor idea. Try to create or use ChatGPT to reply to reviews in a custom and a very beautiful way, encouraging users to change their negative review to positive one, while at the same time collecting all the negative reviews and providing the list of a short list of features that have to be improved to the product team. Because doing this manually is a pain in a butt.
I think it's definitely about whatever information you get from ChatGPT, or, for example, in this case, when we're talking about reviews, making sure that it glides down to every single part of every team that could potentially have an effect on it. So, as you were mentioning, so from the ASO team, maybe incorporate some of the main things that people rave about in your screenshots, and also from the product team, also how to solve all of those patches.
To get even crazier, when we talk about AI, you can also generate the same system into your paid ads to check what people are commenting under your paid ads across, for example, socials, and understand what are the creative features that work best, and translate them into screenshots, and then check the app reviews afterwards if people are not misled.
Sounds like it might be a magic pill by the sound of it.
Somebody still has to understand and build the magic behind it, right?
Maybe just to finish up, from the perspective, now we're talking about like different things that we can try. Do you see any opportunities of incorporating this into AI into your ASO now? Maybe Skylar, you have a bit of some ideas.
This is one that I feel very strongly about, is that I think one of the main opportunities, don't worry, one of the main opportunities, in addition to like giving access to creating good quality content, like to different, I don't know, smaller developers and stuff like that, that's obviously good. But the main one for me is that I think there's going to be an opportunity, and we've kind of been circling around this topic through the whole talk without even knowing about it. It is that I think there's going to be opportunities for people who are very competent at working with the AI, like knowing what to feed it, how to communicate with it to get the desired results. And this is very similar to like when the internet came out. And I don't know if anybody in here is old enough, if you remember like in school there were courses talking about like, okay, teaching you how to Google stuff, for example, and then
How to turn on your computer.
how to turn on your computer, of course, very important. And then, like, yeah, as the internet became a thing, there arose an opportunity for people to be very competent with, like, you know, the algorithms and keyword rankings and keyword research and optimizations, which we, of course, know as SEO. So I think something similar is on the horizon for AI, and that's kind of like I've heard you guys kind of mention that indirectly today.
You just mentioned all the buzzwords of this conference: keywords, optimization, AI.
That's the main point, right? That's why I'm here.
No, I mean, like, use it or lose it. The sooner, the better. Drop the mic.
Yeah, I feel here. Well, Max, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I think these language models also lack the usage among the wider audiences. Like, there are a lot of people who get comfortable with that, but it also lacks, like, I don't know, my mom doesn't use it still. And I think the expectations of the users will change. Like, you know, they will be more comfortable speaking not to a person, but to a chatbot. The more they have this experience of interacting with assistants and stuff. So it also kind of changes the behavior, the communication between the brand, between the apps and the user. And yeah, maybe there will be some other platforms, but yeah, from the user expectations part, yeah, there will be also a change when we see wider adoption of this communication style.
I feel this is what we were saying, that we would like to be in that point in the future where actually AI is the magic potion that would solve everything. Until now, I think we just need to try to, as they were mentioning, integrate it as much as we can in our teams, but also in those things that make sense. Let's not try to get overwhelmed. It's all about testing, exploring, and what works well for your team. So then I would like to thank the panelists here that have been explaining everything. Thanks a lot for staying, and hope you enjoy lunch.